Greetings to everyone. This is our Spiritist Psychology Study Group. Tonight's topic is the wounded child, and I'd like to hand it over to Anahy. Over to you, Anahy.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I will just share my screen, and we are going to have some questions and answers in the end. Let's see. I think it just takes some minutes to okay. Are you, is that okay, my voice?
Yep, I
Okay.
can see you well. Yes, it's very clear.
Okay. So we are going to be talking about the wounded child, but I wanted to, like it more generally speaking, the inner child, the complex of the inner child, and then we connect with the wounded child, okay? So I think this I like very much. I know everybody knows because it's in the internet, this image, but I think it's great to understand, to really connect and to understand the importance of the inner child of this complex and to manifest, to deal with our inner child, especially the wounded aspects of the inner child, and also to relate to each other through the inner child also, with everything that we are and have, but with this potentiality that the inner child represents, and healing it, healing the wounded part of the inner child is so important, and we are going to be seeing why. But I want to just give you the idea that if we don't connect with this so important and central complex within our psyche, and we don't use it actually and bring to consciousness, many times we are going to be acting towards each other with the aspects of our wounded child. Okay, so let's understand a little more about this. So I started with it's very general, but I think it's very important. So it gives us an overview, some parts of a chapter by the book Life, Challenges and Solutions. In the book Life, Challenges and Solutions, that it's by Divaldo Franco and Joana de Angelis. So Joana de Angelis says that in the unavoidable endeavor of ascension, so of our evolution, individuals must face the constructions of their past. These constructions are engraved within them and often manifest outwardly as afflictions and limitations, and inwardly as conflicts on the inner landscape. They threaten attempts at self-realization, the joy of work, an harmonious coexistence with others, easily becoming perturbing complexes in the realms of emotion and behavior. We have already talked about complexes, Jung's concept of complexes, but we are going to be seeing a little bit more again so that it's more clear to everyone. And then Joanna says that the factors responsible for such disturbances cannot be denied. They start with the expectant mother's behaviors, which affect the fetus during its intrauterine life, and they culminate with familial coexistence, particularly with domineering fathers and emasculating neurotic mothers who pass their insecurities and all their other problems onto their growing children, who in turn become debilitated under the heavy burden of tensions they are forced to bear. So Joanna is asking us to pay attention to what it means for the child to be a father and mother, the importance of the father and mother in the psychic life of the child, in the development of personality, and very deeply in our psyche as spirits in evolution. Okay, we're going to see more of that. What does Joanna de Angelis want us to understand about the child within us, about the role of our parents in our life, about the complexes, okay? On the other hand, social, economic, cultural, and educational pressures become terrifying giants that persistently persecute the student who absorbs but cannot digest such ghosts. Consequently, he or she fears the tests and endures them, these ghosts, throughout his or her life unless appropriate treatment is received. Of course, the spirit reincarnates in the place that is best for its evolution. However, since no one reincarnates to suffer, pay attention. This is Joanna speaking, okay? No one reincarnates to suffer, but rather to make reparation, acquire new experiences, develop aptitudes, and grow inwardly. All the obstacles that individuals face are part of their educational plan. Consequently, they must equip themselves with values and discernment in order to surmount them. And freed from all restrictions on their liberty, advance confidently on their quest for self-fulfillment. I think this is, summarized beautifully our evolution as spirits and also the development of our personality here, because we are going to be born in the family, in the time, in the place that we have chosen, that we, with our spiritual mentors, have decided that was the best possible experience for our spirits. To what? To face ghosts that are not only from this lifetime, from our childhood, from the experiences of our wounded child, and of course, as Joanna says, from our social, economic, cultural, and educational environment, but from experiences that we bring from our spiritual past. Okay, so we are here not to suffer. We are here. This is very important because the ego suffers. We suffer. Okay, we suffer with some experiences. We suffer in our childhood. Why? Because our parents are not perfect. We are not perfect. They also have their own traumas, their own experiences. They are here also to learn. So of course, at this point of our evolution, we are going at some point to have some traumas, some difficulties to face. But we are not here to suffer. Our egos still suffer, okay, because we haven't developed yet this broader vision that we are trying to develop here. For instance, in this meetings, okay, studying Jungian psychology, spiritist psychology, putting everything together, different authors, but especially the psychology of Joanna de Angelis, our light teacher, that it's one of many light teachers, but we are, as we know, she's the first up to this date to put together many authors, and especially Jung's depth psychology with the spiritist psychology, okay? And also with concepts, spiritualist concepts of other religions. She talks about Buddhism, for instance, in one of her books, okay? So everything that can help us, that we have studied and that we know about ourselves, psychologically speaking, but then Joanna goes further. She goes deeper in our psyche, and she says that this concept of the higher self, that for Jung is the self with capital S, is our spirit. So she's putting everything together to help us develop this, what sometimes she calls a cosmic consciousness, okay? That is the consciousness that we need very much, okay, in these days that we are living, because we are transitioning. This is in our culture that some people call New Age culture, but it has been said and has been channeled for centuries now, and the time is now, right? So let's go back to what Joanna is asking us to pay attention, that we face these ghosts, that our uh, childhood, that our many complexes, that our social, economic, and cultural and educational pressures, they kind of inflict on us when we are here. And she's telling us to stop fearing, hating, okay, all these pressures, but understanding them, integrating them in a more understandable way, connected to our higher self, to our spiritual experience, okay, so that the ego can calm down, can mature, so that we can like connect with this wisdom, with this knowledge that is within us. It's not outside of us, it's within us, and then we can achieve together, because she uses and she agrees with Jung about the collective unconscious, this transpersonal dimension of the psyche, where we are one, okay? So Joanna is saying that, of course, the spirit reincarnates in the place that is best for its evolution. It's not for us to suffer, Oh, but I was born in a place where there are lots of wars, for instance. People, like myself, for instance, I'm here with many people living floods in my state and in my city, and with lots of suffering at this point. So I could be asking myself, why was I born in this moment, in this place and time? Why was I born to suffer all this? And Joanna is answering us that we reincarnate in the place that is best for our evolution. So what is my task when I'm facing difficulties, right? And she's saying, since no one reincarnates to suffer, but rather to make reparation, acquire new experiences, develop attitudes, and grow inwardly. So she's telling us this is the main goal. Why we chose as spirits to live some experiences, even if we knew that our egos would suffer in a way, because the ego suffers, because the ego has a very narrow vision of what's going on. But as we mature, this vision open, let's say, this vision connect more with the higher self. Okay, so it's like we are developing a spiritual vision of life, leaving this duality that the ego lives, okay, and going towards, like I would say, a dimension of non-duality, that it's the spiritual dimension, the spiritual realms. Not that we are going to, at this point, leave our bodies or whatever we can, but I mean, um, what we are really doing at this point is here on earth with our egos, with our psyches, and together connecting, learning how to connect with our higher selves, and also to manifest it in this life of material experiences. So this is amazing because we are vibrating, learning how to vibrate in a more high, in more higher frequencies, okay? So that's the purpose. That's the purpose, that we are living this very challenges moments globally, actually. So it's not to suffer, it's to make reparation what some mistakes that we have made in our spiritual past, to acquire new experiences and to develop aptitudes, including spiritually speaking, and grow inwardly, all and face all the obstacles that we have to face as part of an educational plan. Consequently, we all must equip ourselves with values and discernment in order to surmount them and be free and make ourselves free from all restrictions on our liberty and advance confidently on our quest for self-fulfillment. Okay? So in the book Mirrors of the Soul, a therapeutic journey, and that it's Divaldo and Joanna and some other authors that are writing from, from Divaldo's and Joanna orientation, let's say. In chapter 3, that it's by the author Claudio Sinotti, and the chapter is Personality Development and Life Stages. It's all based in Joanna's teachings, okay? But each author had some liberty to put together also their own understanding. And Claudio says what we have already talked about in the past here in our meetings. When Carl Gustav Jung was just 11 years old, he noticed something curious in his behavior. He knew he was a boy and he behaved like a boy within the society and time in which he lived. But at the same time, sometimes he felt like an old man from the 16th century who had a lot of knowledge. I don't know if you remember that we talked about, this is written in beautiful Jung's autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, okay? So this perception led him to conceive that somehow two predominant types of behavior alternated in his psyche, and which he began to call personality 1 and personality 2. It was not a dissociation itself or even a process of spiritual influence, but of a dynamic that unfolds in every individual. And we have studied, we know now that we have a personality, an ego. And you see here, Jung was a child. His ego was 11 years old, but he had the perception that he was also an old man, let's say. So what was this perception? He was having an understanding and intuition, let's say, not exactly understanding because he was 11 years old, but a perception and intuition of his higher self, okay? The old man within ourselves, okay? So the personality 1 and personality 2. It was not a dissociation itself, it was not a neurotic thing, or even a process of spiritual influence that some spiritists could think of, or other spiritual religions, but of a dynamic that unfolds in every individual. The difference is that Jung was born with his self, capital S, very active, okay, because 11 years old. But we know that some kids nowadays, exactly because of this transitional phase that we are living in spiritually speaking, the children that are reincarnated, we know we have this knowledge that there are a lot of evolved souls reincarnating to help us to transition to the what we call the spiritist knowledge called regenerate world, where we are higher in evolution that we are now, spiritual evolution. So it is equivalent to saying that different selves inhabit the same individual, understanding these selves not as different souls, but as psychic contents that sometimes contrast with each other. The challenge that arises is to become aware of these parts, integrating them into consciousness, so that the vision of the whole, the self, because remember, Jung calls the self, capital S, the center of the psyche, but also the totality at the same time, okay? So that the vision of the whole, the self, becomes clearer. In a way, the study of personality tries to understand these selves existing in the psyche, whose development has already been analyzed from various points of view, from philosophy and science to psychology deepening, and which aims to understand its formation and structuring from the perspective of the stages of life, of the internal and external factors that influence the personality's development, as well as the disorders that result from its disruption. Okay. Usually, when we refer to personality, reference quickly appear regarding people with striking characteristics, with peculiar traits that define them, but noticeable traits do not completely define personality, as it is something much more complex, our personality. For this reason, even though we find certain biotypes and characteristics common to human beings in their collective aspects, individuality presents the color and tone that denote the uniqueness of each individual. On the psychological side, Sigmund Freud's contribution gave a significant boost to personality studies. broadening horizons in the attempt to verify the influence of the unconscious on our behavior. For Freud, personality is influenced by conscious and unconscious forces, with the ego being midway between the id and the superego. From his studies, it was realized that human personality was not limited to phenomena observable in consciousness. We know that Freud opened the doors of the unconscious, but as we have already talked about, the personal unconscious, he didn't achieve the concept and couldn't agree with Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, okay? But Carl Jung, when developing his analytical psychology, proposed that, look at his, what Jung says, the personality in turn wants to evolve from its unconscious conditions and experience itself as a totality. Jung presented archetypes as driving forces of personality, understanding that we are not born a tabula rasa, according to the conception of thinkers such as Aristotle. He also introduced the study of the complexes and psychological types, which revealed a new approach to understanding the human being as a whole. For Jung, life, therefore, has a profound purpose, and the personality has to be structured to fulfill this purpose. However, unfortunately, many approaches have left aside the spiritual journey of the being. And in the opinion of scholars such as the American psychologist Thomas Armstrong, leaving the essence of the soul out of the stages of life is like studying birds in the forest without taking into account their song or flight. This look towards the integral being is completed in the transpersonal and spiritual approaches that, based on the valuable studies of their predecessors, have the spiritual being as an essential basis in their analysis. Spiritist psychology highlights the development of personality from successive reincarnations, when, according to Joanna de Angelis, personality represents the appearance to be known, often in dystonia with the deep and real self. It is transitory and marks reincarnationist stage, defining experiences in sex, culture, intelligence, art, and relationship. Personality development, therefore, is not ecstatic, but something in constant formation and transformation, and which at each stage of life presents certain challenges. The personality is also developed with each incarnation, bringing with it the experiences of the past and submitting to new injunctions and experiences as a way of improving and bringing to consciousness the individuality of the being. According to Jung, this is beautiful. This Jung sentence is in collective work 17, here in paragraph 290. According to Jung, our personality develops in the course of our life from germs that are hard or impossible to discern. And it is only our deeds that reveal who we are. We are like the sun, which nourishes the life of the earth and brings forth every kind of strange, wonderful, and evil thing. We are like the mothers who bear in their wombs untold happiness and suffering. At first, we do not know what deeds or misdeeds, what destiny, what good and evil we have in us. And only the autumn can show what the spring has engendered. Only in the evening will it be seen what the morning began. Isn't that beautiful? So this is Jung talking about our personality and its development in the course of our life cycle. And what for the ego, okay, the center of our consciousness, it's like hard or even impossible to discern. And how we understand in the ego is doing here the job of living this life, of adapting to this life, but also doing the job, as Joanna says, of what the spirit of what our higher selves decided that wanted to learn in this experience, okay? Wanted to experience in this life, we can say. So to under how are we going to know? Because as Jung says, we are like the sun, which nourishes the life of the earth and brings forth every kind of strange, wonderful, and evil thing. For instance, some people related the solar storms with the floods that we are living here at this moment in the very south of Brazil, of course, with the climate change and everything else. But synchronistically, the sun these days, we're having one of the huge storm. Okay, so some people related, and for us at this point, for us living here, this catastrophic flood in the very south of Brazil, then we would feel like evil, okay? But and sometimes we ourselves can see some actions that we have taken, even if we were not aware of them, as evil, but also as wonderful and also as strange. So how are we going to know our deeds and misdeeds? What destiny, what good and evil we have in us? Only living this life, Jung says, only observing, learning how to discern, okay, and not hiding from everything that we are. And he says only the autumn can show what the spring has engendered. Only in the evening will it be seen what the morning began. Okay. So, how to heal the wounded child? We are going to be seeing more, okay? But I just wanted to bring the healing first, and to understand the wounded child. So in Jung's conception, the child initially experiences total identification with the life of the parents, unconscious of the self that she is, the self, the spirit, okay? As at this stage, the ego does not yet consciously elaborate what it lives, experiences are felt and archived in the unconscious, and according to their content, they can feed crises from the past, from issues not yet resolved, even from other, of course, because we are talking about childhood, so from other incarnations. Or if the educational process is well conducted, they can heal the child's wounds, leaving a record of positive experiences that will help the growing personality face challenges in the future. If, for example, a spirit with experiences of abandonment in the past relieves the same situation in its initial phase of life, it is very likely that the old conflict will rekindle, increasing the strength of the dominating complex. Little by little, the child begins to perceive himself, herself, as a separate self from her parents. And her personality begins to show its specific characteristics. This happens little by little, starting with the use of the pronouns I and my, which begin to be used with greater intensity from the age of 1.5 years old. As part of the characteristics that the child presents is not accepted within the context in which she lives, the persona and shadow begin to be structured based on education received. All behaviors interpreted as accepted at this stage gain strength to be incorporated into the behavior of the child and the persona, while the rejected content feeds the shadow. I just want people here to remember that the persona and the shadow are complexes in our personal unconscious, okay? And one of the first, as we are seeing here, we are having it described to us how the persona and the shadow are structured in our personality. Because when the child, for instance, does something that the mother or the father don't think it's nice, they are going to say, of course, for many times, oh, mother or father is very sad with you. You did something that is not nice. You have been sometimes, still these days, we have parents saying you have been a bad boy or a bad girl, right? So, for instance, if the boy or the girl has done something like stealing a toy for a friend, or doing something that the father and mother think it's wrong, right? Well, so the child learns at this point that there is a bad part within herself, himself. So what is well, father and mother think it's she's not going to think this is a bad part of myself, but this is bad, I'm being bad. So of course it's going to be repressed, denied, especially denied, because the child doesn't have all the mechanisms of defense of the ego structure. This is going to be developing, but actually it's going, of course, be denied and goes to the unconscious, okay? Denial is a very primitive mechanism of defense of the ego, all right? So what happens is that, okay, now we have the shadow being born within ourselves. And I want to be a good boy or a good girl because I need my father and mother acceptance of myself. It's to feel secure, to feel safe, to feel loved. So of course, I will learn what mother and father think it is to be a good girl or boy, and I will introject these images, and I'm going to be creating my persona, my social mask, as Jung said. Okay, so the persona and the shadow are complexes that are in opposition to each other, and the persona is conscious. I want to be a good girl or boy, so I want this. Oh, if I do that, if I talk in the way that my mom and my dad want me to talk, if I'm not aggressive, if I don't show my hatred to anyone, or my jealousy towards my brother, my little brother or sister, then of course I'm going to be a good girl. So I learned not to at least realize my jealousy, my hatred, my competition, for instance. And this goes all to my shadow, as to the unconscious. The shadow is unconscious. And in my persona, oh, I'm such a cool person. I'm such a nice boy or girl, because I give all my gifts, my play, my even my gifts, my toys to my brother and sister. I'm not jealous, and I'm such a nice boy or girl, for instance, and I don't hate. I love everyone. Okay, now my shadow is really huge, right? And my persona is beautiful, for instance. Okay, so that's how the persona and the shadow are structured. The problem is not having a persona or a shadow, because as structures of the psyche, they are important parts of the self. The problem is ignorance regarding its constitution, which causes us to remain unaware of ourselves. That's why we constantly have to visit the drawers of the past, in which we often store important aspects of our individuality. Parents must help the child realize that the world is not at her service. The small frustrations, the limits placed on the way one relates to the world, as well as the incentives to explore and discover it, will have a great influence on the structuring of her personality. And there's a psychiatrist called Erik Erikson that we learn when we are studying psychology and psychiatrists, that he studied the life cycle, okay, and the main psychological tasks that we have to go through in each phase. So as Erik Erikson well observed, if children are encouraged to experience the world in a supported and responsible way, they are very likely to develop autonomy and self-confidence. That's why he places personality development in the first stage between two polarities, trust and distrust. Trust develops from the care and protection received, with distrust being the result of neglect. It is important to note, however, that even in this regard, excesses generate pathologies. As for children who are overprotected, dependence gains strength, accompanied by a feeling of shame and insecurity in their own abilities and capabilities. Okay? And here I want just to point out that trust and distrust, and learning how to trust, it's a lot of analysts, psychoanalysts, such as Erik Erikson, and they understand that it starts with the trust and distrust in the care of the father and mother. Okay, and this is very important because Freud said that the idea of God was because of the child, the fear and insecure of the child that looks for the father for protection. And he said, so it was magical thinking and the thinking of the child within us, the idea of God, that we project onto this idea of God, okay? And he was not mistaken if we are talking about our inner child. And for instance, if I learn to believe in my parents, it's one of the ways, and to trust my parents, it's one of the ways that my inner child can develop, and in a certain healthy way. And when I grow old, it's going to probably be easier for me to develop my imago Dei, my own idea of God, of the transcendence and the transcendent one, without connecting so much the idea of God with my father or mother complex, especially my father complex. But the thing is that many people have a lot of difficulty doing that. And they really do, like Freud says, they project onto the idea of God the complex of the father. So if the father has been an abusive father, a domineering father, it's more likely that when this child grows to adulthood, he's going to connect, if it's he or she is a religious person, he's going to connect the idea of God, okay, the archetype actually of God, or the knowledge that it's deep within the psyche, but for this person, it's going to be like blurred, like confused with the father complex, okay, and then probably the person will be a fanatic, or will be in a religion where where God is like an aggressive and punishing God, okay, because it's mixed, that gets confused, and it's very pretty much attached to the father complex, to the experience in this life. So we have to outgrow this. We have to understand that deep within our psyche, we all have an imago Dei, what we call the imago, the archetype of a transcendence, of a unity, of what we call God, okay, of something that connects all of us and that creates life, okay, in a unity that interconnects everything, okay. So we can talk more about this in the questions in a moment. So encouraging self-confidence is an important step for the child to experience and learn about the world. And at all stages of childhood, parents have an important role, not letting the child forget, this is very important, their spiritual and divine origin. The educational challenge should not be limited to preparing children to be someone in the world. This is the egoic and restricted view of being. The great task is to promote the construction of individuality based on the deep identity of the being that we are, and which has important foundations in childhood. Joanna de Angelis summarizes the importance of childhood. It is in childhood, she says, that events are deeply fixed. The impressions of acceptance and rejection will be instilled in the depths of the psyche, blessing the child with love and security, or tearing apart her emotional system, which will begin to suffer the unconscious effects of the animosity to which she has been the object. Okay? I just wanted, before we go to the, conversation and questions about, to show you, I just left here, we have already seen, please, people that haven't watched the meeting about the complexes, right, Fabricio? Go if Fabricio can give the address to people who are listening to us, the
Yeah.
address of the YouTube channel, Fabricio.
Yep. I will share with the group.
Okay, great. So it's all in the YouTube channel where the classes in our meetings are. So I just wanted to remind you, or for people that haven't watched, please go there, because this is Jung's model of the psyche, okay? And when we talk about the wounded child, we are talking about, here, see, complexes, okay? That are in the personal unconscious here, okay? And of course, the ego self axis, so self as being capital S, our higher self, higher consciousness, okay, our spirit, and the ego, the center of our consciousness, that is only this here outer space of the psyche, okay? And deep in the collective unconscious, we have the archetypes A here, okay? This is a very simple way to understand the Jung's model of the psyche, but it's very nice because it's simple, so we can understand. So the wounded child is one of our complexes, and together with the complex of the mother, our own personal experience in this life of our mother, and together with the complex of the father complex and mother complex, the experience that we have of our personal father and mother here in this life, they form also a complex. So the complex of the child, the complex of the father and the mother, and especially we are talking today about the wounded aspects of the child's complex. They are in our personal unconscious. So Freud studied a lot and Jung went further. And especially because, as we have seen, Jung says that the personality wants to express itself in this life, wants to evolve. This is something that Freud never said, that the personality, our psyche, we can use here almost as synonyms, have our psyches have a purpose here in this life, that is to evolve, is going somewhere, okay? And how do we know that? Because Jung gets to the point of understanding and identifying deep in our psyche, so in the transpersonal dimension of the psyche, what he called the self, and some people call the higher self, that have contact, and also we could say are in the same dimension of our archetypes, these ancient types that show us the way here to develop what are we doing here, our, as Jung says, our personal myth, our sacred story. So the archetypes are going to that are active, let's say, in our lives, are going to be showing us the way to develop and to actually do what we are supposed to do in this life, okay? So just to show you, we have already seen these images. I'm slowing down so that people that are at home can have a look if they want to have a look here. But we are not going to go through all of this because we have already gone, okay? So you can, that's the definition, very simple definition of a complex. And they are complex, are subject to the control of consciousness up to a certain limit, okay? Because we repress them usually, okay? And in the first favorable opportunity, they resurface with all the original strength. So the wounded child, if we don't deal with the wounded child, oh, Anahy, but my father and mother really hurt me and I have some traumas. Okay, but we are not talking about the person that they are. We are talking about the father complex, the mother complex. So our inner representation of our experience in this life with them, okay? So of course we have to understand that at this point, the father and mother, let's say, that are going to be healing our wounded child, where are they? They are inside of ourselves, okay? We are the father and mother of our wounded child. We have to work with our complexes so that we can like outgrow them in a sense. They are hurt, they are mistrust, they are insecurities, and like balance all of them, help them to talk to each other, let's say. And we have seen this, I just wanted to show you again. This is by James Hollis, Mythologems. It's a beautiful book that we have already talked about. And here he's talking about parental complexes, that we have this meeting recorded. Also, you can go in the YouTube channel of Fabricio's Spiritist Center and take a look, okay? I'm just showing so that people can stop and see a little better here, okay? But Hollis will say here, how can something be archetypal when it is so clear tied to the local culture and personal complex? And he says such reflection is necessary, for we are obliged to try to make sense of this brief conjunction, no matter how obscurely transitory it seems. And these fragile individuals assigned to us by destiny, our father and mother, were the protagonists in the construction of our sense of self, of the world, and of the relationship between them. If, however, we reflect on the father and mother as modes of expressions, as personifications of energy, as teleological tasks, evolutionary tasks, we then open ourselves up to the consideration of parents in general. So we stop blaming our father and mother for everything, for our wounded child, and then we do the job that we are supposed to. We forgive them, we understand them, and we forgive ourselves, right? Because of course we understand in a spiritual sense that we have chosen them, and they are so important for the learning experience that we have chosen to go through in this life. And Hollis says, here we are not talking about our personal parents, but about personified notions, embodied energies, okay? They are energies within us. In any family, these energies may or may not be carried out by the father or the mother. When the individual lives with a particular limited parent, or when he or she is an orphan, for instance, he may have lived without the expression of these energies in general. This is a challenge. In either case, the long-term task of the child turned adult is to more consciously witness and internalize these energies, or remain forever trapped in Axion's steel wheel of fatal repetition. So we just keep repeating the same things that our parents did to us. The task of identifying, perhaps defeating, the tyranny of the internalized imago is one of the main tasks of therapy and all forms of healing. The person who has not been healed ends up playing these imagos everywhere, and most importantly, transmits the same patterns to their children. It's getting dark here. Can you still look at me? So I don't need to wake up to turn on a light. Let's see. So in Divaldo's themes of in life and death, and the spirit is Philomena, oh, light, synchronicity, light appeared. So Manuel Filomeno de Miranda is the spirit. he says, we have already seen that, but what I want you to pay attention, that he says that if there are physical and even psychological similarities with our father and mothers, these acquired through family life, the same does not happen in the moral and intellectual field. The spirit is heir to its own past conquests, thanks to which it expresses itself in the field of new activity. However, family behavior influences the conduct of the reincarnating person, who becomes impregnated according to the level of evolution and awareness of each spirit, with conflicts and vibrations that will not profoundly influence his or her profoundly influence his or her behavior. Okay? Reactions of various kinds will manifest themselves in the child as a result of the insecurity he or she experiences in the new crib, unfolding in rebellion and dissatisfaction, nervousness, and intellectual disability during childhood and adolescence, with aggravating factors for the future, if the parents' love do not interrupt the flow of unhappy reminiscence. And we have here also Family Constellation by Devald and Joanna, where she talks about constellation, and we have seen that already, but I'll just leave here so that people can stop a little bit to see to look at it again. And where she talks that parents need to take on the crucial and intensive work of self-preparation for this sublime commitment, thanks to which they can greatly develop their intellectual moral values in their ascent towards peace and joy, which we all seek. Okay? After consulting the maps of individual responsibilities, the spirit guides present the future parents to its offspring. So it's in the higher dimensions that we plan the family, with whom they will cultivate and forge ties of love, designating process for spiritual growth, through which all will reach the goals they aspire, or we can get stuck. We know that. Once reincarnated, they advance sometimes through different paths until the moment they meet and then constitute the family. You can read slowly at home later on. However, those carefully established plans don't always work out due to emotion precipitation and psychological distresses. From the moment the child is born, the parents are invited by life to change their existential objectives. A natural change in conduct needs to replace the immediate aspirations. And nowadays, unfortunately, we are not seeing this in many, many young parents. The care for a newborn demands complete renewal of habits. Treatment between partners must also improve, because to educate is to offer example, and the student learns better from living lessons than informed theories. If those examples are nurtured by love, respect, patience, children become warm, friendly, and pleasant, except in cases, of course, of behavioral disorders or other phenomena. However, in such cases, the vibrations emanating from those, even in such cases, the vibrations emanating from those examples greatly contribute to the appeasement and harmony of these spirits as they struggle for sublimation through urgent reparation. Unfortunately, the psychological immaturity of many adults lead the parents to childlike behaviors, and they try to maintain the same habits they had before the birth of their children. And she also tells that many parents project onto their children their anguishes and frustrations, transforming them into infant models that imitate adults depriving them of childhood. Okay, and then we have seen the psychology of gratitude. I'm just going to go through so people that haven't seen this meeting or for some reason want to take a look, just can take a look again, okay? And the habits, the importance of gratitude in family. And just want to tell here that struggles of this magnitude, okay, that we are struggling to develop patience and to exercise tolerance and compassion, leading to an improvement of the self. So struggles of this magnitude elevate human beings, helping them develop their internal God. Okay, you can take a look. And this is just to remind people about the archetypes that are ancient forms in our psyche, that are systems, okay, which are powerful even if they don't carry mass, and which are real even if invisible. Archetypes are transpersonal ordering principles in the psyche, according to Jung. They are natural constants, pre-existing, self-organizing forces within the psyche whose origin is unknown. The archetypes exist in a psychic system of a collective, universal, and impersonal nature, what we call the collective unconscious. So from this system, invisible forms can appear in our minds and guide our imagination, perception, and thought. And in reflecting the soul, we know we have that the word archetype means an original model, a kind of matrix of human behavior. Archetypes are primordial and structural elements of our psyche. They manifest themselves on a personal level through complex, as we have seen, and collectively through cultural characteristics. Why I'm talking about the archetypes? Because the wounded child that makes us suffer so much as has in its core the archetype of the child. So has in its core the divine child. It's the archetype, okay, of the inner child. And here's, I thought it's a beautiful image of our inner child. And remembering it, so we can also call the holy child, okay? The divine child archetype, just I think this is very important, is closely related with the golden child, for instance, it's a motive in many mythologies, and both represent qualities of innocence, purity, and redemption, okay? And it's deep within our psyche, people. So it's the new possibilities for our spirit. The many potentialities are in the core of our inner child complex. So the child archetype is the symbol of hope and transformation. Isn't that beautiful? So we need to connect, we need to heal our wounded child. We need to, so that our inner child can be healthier and we can explore and use all its possibilities and all its potentialities, because this is also connected with the divine child within each one of us. I will stop sharing at this point, and we can have some questions and comments that you people want to clarify a little bit. If you
So
want
for
me to
those,
give some examples, go ahead, Fabrice.
I was just gonna say, for those that want to interact with the group, if you want to raise your hands with the Zoom hand, and then we can start the questions and answers.
And if people are thinking, while you are thinking, I'll give you a wonderful example that happened here in this catastrophic climate event that we are living. I'm doing pro bono work, of course, as a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists are doing these days. And I just was talking the other day with a volunteer firefighter. Okay, she's a 20-something years old single mother, and she is breastfeeding, if you can believe. And she was called to help rescue people. Okay, and I'll give you two examples. So her inner child, it's important so that you understand that we have a wounded child, as we talked about. We have the inner child, the wounded child is part of the inner child. We have the divine child. We have so many complex. We have our higher self. So when we, and it's not unfortunately all psychiatrists and psychologists and different therapists that are that even know or that feel okay with dealing with the spirituality and the faith of the person. Um, Even if we know that research in the medical field in psychiatry and psychology show that it's a very potent, of course, many psychiatrists don't even know Jung, unfortunately, to this day, but it's a very important coping mechanism, okay? So I was talking to her, and she of course is going in direction of a post-traumatic syndrome because she was called, and she thought, she said yes, she's a volunteer. She said yes, but she was called, she thought that she was going only to receive people and to help people go to different shelters. Okay, but for some reason, I think everybody, even the firefighters, everybody was really, what's going on in the first moments. They never asked her, and she didn't realize she had to say, I'm breastfeeding, I have a small baby at home that my mother is taking care of. So they put her in a boat, and she went to the rescue people that were on rooftops. Okay, and when she got there were a lot of people and mothers and children, very small children. And of course, she has a small children. So the mother was there. She was a mother. The child was there because she was also like, the inner child was there. Everybody was there, but the self was there. So in the first moment, there was no room in the boat for all these people. So, and the firefighters didn't know what to do, and she said, "No, I'm going to leave me here with some of these people and the children that are older, and take the moms and the babies on the boat." Okay, and they come back to us. They did that, but they never came back. So she got stuck on the rooftop with 16 people, including mothers and children of 4 or 5 years old and some older. And the night was falling, and they didn't have lanterns. Okay, so you can imagine all the fear, the insecurities of her inner child, of course, and of the mother that she is also, and fearing for those children and for those mothers. And she told me that because we have to ask, of course, questions, and the person has to be able to talk about, so can connect to some, and we can help the person with, the trauma. But she told me that okay, she went down on the water, in the water, and she held, some iron gate or something, thinking that if the water was not so high, they could put the children on their shoulders and just walk towards someplace safer. But when she went down in the water, there was no, no way. There was nothing under her feet. Then she just told me. Then I started talking to God, and she said, "God, you are going to save me, and you are going to because I have a small baby, and I have to feed my baby, and you are going to save." She was not asking, she was kind of ordering God, you are going to save all these mothers and the children, and I know you are going to do that and this and that. And I said, okay. And then was totally dark, she couldn't see anything, just, and she was talking to God, she was doing like this, and then suddenly she looks and there's a shadow. She just said there was a shadow someplace, and she walked towards this shadow, and this shadow was a boat of a man who had came back, or not for her, because this man was not a firefighter, was whatever, a man who had came to his house that was at some point nearby to have some furniture taken. And she talks to the man and said, you have to help me because there are children and mothers up on the rooftop. And then okay, the guy said, okay, I will help you. And then everybody went to the boat. He said, it's not going to be possible to put everybody in the boat. She said, yes, it's going to be possible. And everybody went in the boat. She didn't ask, she said, and she was like, man, her animals was very active. She was not asking, she was saying that it would be like that. And so she was saved, and she saved 16 people, And when we were talking, she never realized, and I said, okay, so what is your faith? Do you have a religion? Do you believe in God? And said, she almost did like Jung in Face to Face, like almost saying in Portuguese, okay? She did like that. I know. So she didn't believe. I don't believe because Jung says believe. I don't believe. I know. She said, I know. And so she was talking to God, said, you are going to do that. Okay. She was not questioning because she she like just connected with the power that she knew. But also I think at that point, of course I never told her, but I'm telling you now, herself, her higher self, there was a very potent synchronicity because she was talking and she was believing, she was connecting, but also a boat was there. We cannot say that it was cause and effect. Okay, it was a synchronicity, but synchronicity are from the spiritual dimension of our psyche, from this transpersonal dimension. So her imago Dei, her higher self, connected to her, of course, express it, we could say in psychological terms, itself in this. So this is a very potent experience. And when we were talking, she realized. So she realized the coping mechanism that she already expressed, and she felt much better, because she could understand her strength. And this is one example I'm making very simple, okay, because it's not as, but I'm making very simple so everybody can think a little bit. And the second example I wanted to tell you is because it's the wonder child, is one person that tells me that, and this person I know, okay, in a therapeutic setting, that she went like a volunteer to a shelter of dogs and cats. She loves animals. And in this shelter was like, it's still going on, people. So it's like some shelters, like 1,000, 2,000 cats and dogs. And when she arrived in the first moment, there are some volunteers, but feeding and doing like that. And she is a very warm person. She got so desperate for in the first moment she was with the dogs. They were barking so loudly and so desperately that she got desperate. herself. And she got in a suffering state. And she would say, calm down, calm down. She would do like that with her hands. But she told me she was desperate. She didn't know what to do. She felt helpless. She felt all the suffering inside of herself. We call this, it can lead to empathy fatigue, we say in psychiatry. But then she is a spiritist. And I asked her, she was not thinking anything. She was in contact, and the wounded child manifests itself at that point. I know because we have been working with her wounded child, okay, in therapy. And so she was doing like that. And at some point, and she was suffering so much, and some point she remembered Saint Francis of Assisi because she loves animal, and she started calling Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis, please come here, help me with this animal. And she was doing this all the time with her hands. And suddenly, when she's connecting, of course, the pain went down, diminished. So we see, in a sense, she controlled the wounded child within her, not consciously, okay? And her hands started getting really warm, she said. And she realized that she was sending energy. And at some point, all the barking diminished, okay? So this is small examples of something that we here down in the south of Brazil are living at this point. And I think it's a nice example for you to have that even, for instance, we are in a conflicted area. And of course, our egos are going to suffer. What's that? It's surreal, people, when we are, many of you probably have had some kind of experience of a traumatic experience. And then they go say, is that going on really? What's going on? But then when you are in the middle of the hurricane, the eye of the hurricane, and you see all of it, and then you empathize, and then you feel the hurt inside of you, of course the wounded child will appear, okay? And we have to understand that and have this ability to, okay, the wounded child is here, but I'm not only that, and I'm also in the process of healing my wounded child. So other aspects of the psyche are going to manifest, and the ego will be more capable of connecting with our higher self. So remember that spirituality is all about, according to Jung, finding meaning and purpose. So what's the meaning of all of this? Well, maybe I'm not going to be able to discern at this point, but I know that there are meanings in different levels, even collective levels, and that we are all evolving. So, and we are not here to suffer. Remember that we have talked about that. So finding the meaning and expressing our potentialities of our soul, and learning how to connect with each other as brothers and sisters, expressing the loving energy, even when we are suffering. That's the challenge. Okay, I haven't seen raised hands or anyone that wants to comment, but I just wanted to give you these examples. I don't know if it's the impact. Okay, go ahead, Denise.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you. It was very um, uh, emotional experience that we go through now, and it's very important to hear. Um, it's like an opportunity for us to learn through you. Thank you. Second thing is about my, let's say, the mark or the legacy I would like to leave. Now I'm getting retired. I think in a few months, my husband intends to retire after many years in the diplomatic service, and we lived in 12 different countries. So we have seen, you are talking about cultural aspect. And I know that I don't ask why I'm here, but I have the impression that I'm here because there is a meaning, things that I have to learn. And now that we are coming back to Brazil, and our intention is to go to the countryside of Minas Gerais. My legacy, or my mark, very humbly speaking, it's to exactly to give, to pass all these experiences I went through, and what I have learned about these forces that drive us, Um, I I would like to share that we've been quite um, grateful to the spirituality because our kids are doing well. They are emotionally balanced, and uh, we have very beautiful experiences. But we know that I'm gonna deal with this. The children and their families in vulnerability. And I'm trying to learn through you all, the group, the experience of everyone. I don't want to talk too much, but to say that would be so nice. And I see every time how important it is if we could learn in the beginning of our school time about you see our complexes, because I understand nowadays that there is no problem, as you said, to have complex. We are every time. When I am a mother, I was not before to have my kids, but I developed a complex of maternity, né? And later on, according to the experiences of life, we are connected for some, I understand like that, correct me if I'm wrong, to different complexes. But the problem is not to be in contact with the complex, is to the complex to take our to be in charge of us. So we are not able to understand and to behave in a way that uh, uh, um, we are not able to, let's say, to uh, to have an understanding of things, even about our behavior. So I'd like just to tell that thank you very much, because it was very touching and emotional for me. And I more and more I understand the importance of being connect to the children in their beginning of their lives, for their self-confidence, self-esteem, self-esteem, to have to be fulfilled in their existence. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, for your comments. Andres,
I don't know what I will be. Hello, everybody, by the way. So I'm not sure what I will be saying will make any sense. But I understood what you were saying. And I think the need for the inner child is one need and one need only. And this is the need of being heard. And I don't think we're being heard. Humans are not being heard. Grown-ups not being heard. We have to be grown up and we have to be man up, or we have to be fitting into the system. But we still have that need to be heard. And when we go to a doctor, whatever we do, when we have an aha moment, there's nowhere to share it with, no one to share it with. Those aha moments come from our inner child, from the moment we are reconnecting, reintegrate with that inner child and have this amazing relationship with inside of us, but we cannot express it. There's no way to express it. There's no way to share it with. So we're always locking it back in. This is what I find. And then there's so many inner child, so many children out there who wants to talk at the same time. But where do we go and talk? We have to go to a psychiatrist, to an analyst. People take Valiums. People, I don't know, have addictions, manifest themselves somewhere else because the inner child, it's still not being heard. You know, it's a relationship with themselves, the self, you know, but not with someone else. I mean, I make it my business to listen to other people's inner child, and I love it. And this is empowerment, you know. Every time there's somebody wanted to talk, even if it's just a stranger, I allow them to talk because it empowers them. They are empowering themselves by sharing their moment. And the first time ever, nobody talks back. Nobody wants to fix them. Nobody says like, no, that's not how it is. No, that is how it is. You know, why there are 8 billion people on this planet if there's only one way of being, right? So that's a little input for today. I don't know if that makes sense. So.
Thank you, Andres. Yeah, one thing that I think it's interesting, and I want to, I think we are out of time, but I want you to keep in mind, we have the beautiful example. We talked about the inner child, and then the archetype of the divine child, and we have the beautiful example that Jesus tells us that we should be like children, right? To it remind me what Andreas said, to get into the realm of my father, or something like that, just to make it simple. And the thing is that if we accept everything that we are, if we connect with everything that we are, and if we are able to to express all the strength, the possibilities, the potentialities of our inner child, that it's an important part of what we are, because in the Spiritist psychology, we are talking about reincarnation, people, of death and rebirth are strongly connected, because of course we know that we have this wonderful opportunity to be rebirthed in this great school. I think it's still kind of a difficult school sometimes, but it's wonderful. It's challenging. It's beautiful. We learn a lot. We evolve a lot. So I think this is very important when Jesus, and let's just think about, and we can talk more next time, because we are talking all about relations, right? Is relational world. So to heal our wounded child, for me, in spiritually speaking, is to be able to do what Jesus said, to be able to trust the all that the potentialities and possibilities that the child, the archetype, brings to us. This courage, this curiousness about everything, this wanting to know, as Andres said, it's so beautiful. This everything is new, everything is has energy. So we need all of this. So of course, when we are suffering, as in these experiences that I talked to you about, and it's interesting, Andres, that many people don't want to listen to the inner child, to the wounded child, even therapists or whatever. And especially when we are in family or with friends, oh, this is so sad, this upsets me. Why? Because I don't want to suffer, but I'm connecting to this part that it's suffering. So if we can understand, as Denise said, if we can instruct ourselves, understand that it's just the way that we still perceive things, we still understand ourselves. But when we open the channels, let's say, to the understanding and acceptance of everything that we are, then we manifest, as Jesus and other, of course, light teachers throughout human history, But for us, for many of us, Jesus is the higher teacher, let's say light teacher, is showing us the way of evolution, actually, of going back to the source with our own experiences. So, learning how to forgive, to be grateful, to love unconditionally, to trust in ourselves, trust in our brothers and sisters without being naive. Trust that they also in the light that there is in all of us. Some these lights are stronger, some are weaker, but we all have this light. So we need for this world that we are going towards now faster and faster, the regenerated world according to spiritist knowledge, we need this strength, we need this acceptance, this manifestation of the highest valuables, spiritual values, sorry, that Jesus came to show us and other light teachers came to show to us. And we need the strength, the energy, the courage, the curiousness, the potentialities of our inner child and the manifestation of our divine child. Sylvia, you want to say something?
Something very brief. Thank you for this today. It was very powerful. I just think, thinking about the story you told about the girl. Well, she's a girl, 20 years old, going through that. It's just, I think that sometimes human beings, when we look at the world around, it's very easy to become quite a despondent. But human beings seem to be at their best when things are worse. And you have this inner strength, like this girl, she went through, and it's like maybe when yourself really comes out and you see, because we don't know who we are capable of until we stand up and do it, isn't it? And situations like that, it's very much what brings us. And I was just thinking about the situation of a girl I know, she was 20, she's 21, she was in Israel, and they were at their concert, and they were able to run, get to this place to try to be safe, and a place that held 15 people, there were over 40. And of course they came, Hamas came and started shooting everybody. So her boyfriend was killed, and she was with a friend, and they were trying to, because they start shooting people, so they were hiding, pretending to be dead underneath the dead for 5 hours. So eventually, people came and took them away. Her mother couldn't recognize her because she was terribly hurt and everything. So she had to scream to her mother, "Mom, excuse me." So she's in a terrible situation too. She feels bad because she was pretending to be dead and using other people who are dead, to keep her alive. So there is all these incredible things, but they also, they were talking about the doctors and the people were coming and helping them. And she said it was like they had lost connection with humanity. But the kindness, the daughter saying in the middle of horrible things, I mean, it's indescribable what she was telling. But his voice, the voice of the doctor, and his kindness, it said, "You'll be okay, don't worry," and it's just incredible what people go through in this world. And when you say we need to have to be like a child, it's really, you need to be like a child to be able to overcome so much evil that is in the world, but also in the middle of that nightmare, indescribable nightmare. I mean, she told the story, just incredible. A voice of someone just being so kind, it was transformative, was what really will help her to survive the nightmare. And like the stories you were telling, going to the water, God knows what is in water, and having the courage and getting someone, "No, you come with the boat, you're going to take us, all of us," is incredible. It's that we pray for, I think, this kind of the human spirit. And I think when the self comes and is pure, so I mean, sorry it took too long, but
Can I
Thank
ask?
you.
Can
Thank you, Sylvia.
I please ask something? I'm always very confused, but I have a knowing about one thing, that those situations, when situations are really hard, they are created for us, for our soul to grow. So everybody who finds themselves close to in such natural disasters or unnatural disasters, isn't it part of evolution? Isn't it? I just don't understand why we see it as so much drama, where the one soul is surviving, the other one is doing this, and like Sylvia saying, the one girl is so involved, she mimicked being dead under the dead, and somebody else didn't know what to do, froze and got shot. But isn't that what are the challenges of the soul meant to be when we are incarnated in this life? I went through a lot, and I don't want to say any of those, but I have embraced all of them without fail. No regrets, and I never look back and saying, "Oh, I wish that never happened to me." So I've grown a lot. I became a stronger and better person for it, and more complete. And so,
Yes.
I will go back, and so those things are manifested for us to go through, like a movie. Is that wrong? What I'm saying?
Yeah, the ego feels like Sylvia is saying,
Mm.
right? And it's okay because the ego is going to suffer, and when in contact, people are, hearing a lot, not calling evil some people, but and Jung, of course, kind of said, yeah, but in psychological terms, you have to call evil evil. But the less light, let's say, or almost the absence of light, because when we say this is evil and this is good, then we are classifying and saying that an evil person doesn't have any light. And we are really brothers and sisters, even if in different kinds of evolution. But I understand what you say. The suffering is going to be enormous. But I believe, let's go back to what Denise said. And that's why the importance of spiritist knowledge and spiritual concepts, that because Silvia was saying, oh, the dead. For the spirit, death doesn't exist. So for the ego is feeling the threatened, and is feeling, oh, okay, I'm going to die. But if the ego is more mature, and I do believe that we can achieve that, and it's not about age, people. We were talking about that. It's about the experience of the self, as Joanna says, our spirit. So if I come to this world with the certainty that there is no death, that the death is only felt by the ego, or the threat of death, and is felt by us here in the material world, then of course I will go through this, or maybe horrible experiences. As Andrea said, that of course my spirit decided previously, when there are experiences such as that, the ones that we are talking about. But I will be more in connect to my spirit, and I will know that this is a challenge, as Andrew said, that I've chosen to pass. And if I can, and we use Jesus as an example again. Joanna Janges uses and talks about Jesus as a model of a man, also because he was here as a man, for us to follow, a person, let's say a human being, to follow in its development, spiritual development, that he was here in this world, and he got in contact in his life here with the worst kind of evil, right? He was crucified for God's sake, right? And what does he do when he is there? He said, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they are doing, right? So he is an example of how you can be in the worst of situation, of a lot of suffering, but if you connect, and he was connected with the Christ consciousness, it was Jesus the Christ at that point, right? He was connected with the Christ consciousness. So if we are able to do that, but to do that, I agree with Denise, We need to teach more about spirituality. We need to talk to our children, as Joanna says, about our own divinity. And we need to, okay, death exists for the ego. Don't, do something that harm your body and things like that. But know that we are not only what we are here, we are spirits evolving, and death is only a transition, okay, from one phase to the other. I think, Sylvia, that for instance, the girls that we are talking about, young girls, of course, in the ego, they are not that mature. But it's not only because the voice of the doctor that was warm, it's because she projected in the doctor aspects of herself that are strong and they are powerful. And she projected onto the doctor the inner healer that we all have. And of course, sometimes we have to project it onto each other. But a therapy or conversation or even life can teach us and can help us to get in connection with the healer inside of us, with the strength, the spiritual strength that we already have, so that we can have this freedom, not also depending on situations and on people and this and that. But this has to be taught. I totally agree with Denise. This has to be taught to children, right?
Yeah.
We are, our education, and I agree with Andres too, our education is not, unfortunately, to this day, doing this to, there are some schools that are capable of doing, but unfortunately, few schools are able to teach that. We have long passed, but we still have a great number of people. We are seeing each other once a month, so it's okay. I'm happy to stay here.